Hello and welcome. Anyone who's been to Merchant City Yoga on a Sunday knows how much I love catching up with everyone over a cup of my freshly brewed spiced chai. These Sunday chai sessions really bring everyone together. A true celebration of friendship, community and connection. I want to try and capture some of that magic and share it with you at home. So I've invited some familiar faces from our MCY family to chat with me over a cuppa. I'm affectionately calling them the chai sessions. Pop the kettle on, get yourself comfy and come and join us.
Lucy, thank you so much for agreeing to join me in this conversation in a chai session. Now, I have my cuppa here, just as if we were sitting on the sofa together. And I hope you have too.
My cuppa.
Oh, good.
Positive cup of tea.
Great. Can't beat a cup of tea. So just before we get into the chat, just for anyone who's perhaps watching or listening and hasn't heard of you, world famous Lucy Crawford, Ashtanga yoga teacher. Lucy is a very well known, very well loved and well respected international Ashtanga yoga teacher who came to yoga, who discovered yoga in the early 90s coming from a massage and holistic body therapy background. And she's been sharing this very special practice since the mid 90s. And I'm really delighted that she's agreed to come and visit us here in Glasgow to share some of that wealth, that vast wealth of experience and knowledge with the Ashtanga practice, with teaching that practice, and also as a woman doing a practice. I'll come back to this, where there's a lot of speculation around this strong practice and how appropriate it is, and as we age, and especially as women. But I want to circle back around to that, because the first thing I want to ask, Lucy, is what brought you to yoga? Like, why did you start yoga?
Yeah, good question. I was very much into the body, obviously. At 21, I was already qualified as a bodywork therapist and worked up in Nature Works, which was part of Dance Works in central London. And I worked a lot with dancers and various kind of injuries, and my fascination was there, but I didn't have anything that I did for myself. But the introduction to the Ashtanga practice, which actually happened by almost accident, of wondering why all these people were lined up on the stairs with yoga mats at Dance Works one weekend when I'd gone in to do treatments, and ended up joining one of the sessions that weekend. So on the Sunday I went.
Wow.
I actually joined the wrong class and did a full primary series with Radha Worrell. So it was Derek Island and Radha Worrell. That was my kind of introduction to Ashtanga yoga. Prior to that, I'd done, I guess, some Iyengar classes or weekend workshops, but nothing much, just that was my friend Juliet saying I really needed to do something with my body. So yeah, she took me along to a couple of things.
So that's a double wow then, Lucy, isn't it? Because really, like, not having done much yoga before, to then drop right into an Ashtanga-led primary class. And not only that, I led primary class with Radha and Derek Ireland as well. So Derek seems to get everywhere, doesn't he? Because, way back before I met David Kyle, I actually had Derek Ireland's CD. It wasn't even a DVD. It was a CD of him counting a practice. Yeah. And I would try and practice along to it. Well, clearly not very well, probably just as well. There wasn't so much video.
Because I've actually got an old tape. And,
wow.
Before the advent of CDs, one of Derek's tapes. But yeah, and I then did spend time. Derek invited me to the practice place, but basically from that early beginning, between the one class and the practice place, I practiced. So I did what I could do and practiced really quite religiously, if that's a good word. So yeah, I had a kind of
completely appropriate.
it's like I found something, because even though I did enjoy the Iyengar yoga, and I still have a huge respect for all forms of yoga, my sense was that the Ashtanga allowed the moving and breath of the sequencing. It kind of felt more like a dance, and it was something that I felt that I could do, because spending long periods in poses I found really challenging. I was probably a bit weak, actually, and physically.
Yeah, and a little bit boring too. We're being honest about it. Again, much respect, much as I totally respect Iyengar, because it seems to be that, you know, you can see that they've come from a similar teacher, just prioritizing different aspects of a practice that's not a million miles away from each other.
Yeah, I mean,
and
they come from Krishnamacharya, same root, isn't it? And
yeah.
one was just the vinyasa, and the other was much more specific asana, and kind of maybe more dialogue around, you know, what to engage, because obviously in the Ashtanga practice there was very little information, but being a body person, I teach with lots of information. And I actually did do, when I did do the first part of an Ashtanga teacher training, when Finn, my son, was tiny, and I loved that. I used to go to a wonderful woman in New Cross called Dorothy, and it was a blast. Yeah.
Oh, those were the
it was good to challenge myself in a different way. And by that time I was much, you know, the practice was so much part of my life in terms of the Ashtanga, but they used to tell me to not breathe so loudly.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it does seem to me that perhaps things are changing in Ashtanga a little bit, and that there's a little bit more detail and a little bit more instruction. So I think that's a good thing, so long as we don't get too bogged down in that. Because like you, for me, one of the real attractions at the start was that flow and the continual movement. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about what it is about the Ashtanga practice, this method, that attracted you and has kept you coming back all these years?
Yeah, so the attraction was the freedom to practice alone and not to need to follow something or someone, and kind of to be with myself. And obviously for the first, goodness knows how long, I practiced. I was married to John Scott for 19 years, and we practiced a lot together, not all the time, but a lot. But actually my favorite practices were alone, when I look back, and they still are, you know, when there's no distraction. Even if my children were in the room and climbing on me, that was still me alone, and in my own kind of experience. Because I think the pratyahara aspect of the practice is that internal listening. It's turning all of the senses in to listen to your breath and to your sensations, qualities, kind of often what's restricted perhaps, and how that shows up in the body. And it was just time to be with me. Breathing and moving felt really, resourcing. And it's been a great resource for me ever since.
I mean, I definitely think there's something powerful, isn't there, in handing agency to someone who's come into class with you, to come into practice with you, because it seems to me that, I mean, it's probably not a modern thing, but I think it's just maybe more apparent these days that people are looking to go to class to be led through something, to be told what to do. Whereas as a teacher and as a student, I'm looking to be empowered. I'm looking to be, supported and guided and helped and all of that stuff too. But I don't want my power taken away.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the role of a teacher is never to do that. It's to empower.
Mm.
It's not really about you and your practice at all. You know, it's about you being able to see and notice and be curious and, you know, kind of offer other ways to be in something, and I'm full of that kind of information, which is all about empowering. It's not about yeah. I mean, we could see, that's the funny thing as well. We can be really put off when we see people do really kind of advanced things with great ease. And actually, sometimes I post videos of my failings because I think it's more helpful, because we, you know, we don't get things right all the time. You know, if we're trying difficult things, it might take a few times to get up from a back bend or whatever. But it's also, there are kind of very specific cues that we can give that will help a person to find their groins and the internal rotation of the femur, for example, that's going to bring you up from a back bend rather than come up, which is not really going to help anyone at the end of the day. So yeah, it's kind of really finding your psoas. And yeah.
So what do you think it was that inspired you to teach? Like,
well,
was it something you always thought you would do, or?
No, not at all. And I think I was probably reluctant. It was just that I was already assisting John in his classes by that point. And so it was really nice to get the blessing of my teacher to be okay, or allowed, if you like, it was very respectful in the, you know, having a teacher was a very respectful kind of position. And it was nice that I was given the blessing to teach, so to speak. And from then on, I became kind of probably less reluctant. It was difficult for me because I was a body worker and a therapist. So I always had this piece, like, what was I going to give my energy to? And I only had so much energy. And basically, Ashtanga yoga took over my life. And in latter years, so kind of in the last 10 years, I've been sharing much more evenly between my yoga teaching and my craniosacral biodynamics practice. And of course, I have been teaching also in the craniosacral arena.
Richard Freeman has a very tongue-in-cheek video that he's done about yoga ruining your life, yoga taking over your life. Well, actually, and it's so true.
We need to be so grateful, because we have no idea what we would be like without it. And, you know, when I see other people of a similar age to me, the restrictions they have in their body, I'm completely grateful. I'm grateful every day.
I have got no idea. I always kind of smile when I see the memes that go around the social posts, and it's like, you know, about doing yoga and practicing yoga must make you very zen or very calm. And it's like, no, I actually do yoga because I would probably be a fruitcake if I didn't.
Same. I definitely think I probably have some ADHD tendencies, and I think it's really helped me to focus inwardly and ground myself much, much more.
I definitely think there's something.
Slow things down as well, because I actually, one of the things that always comes to mind is when I first met John in Kerala, in Kovalam, and I'd gone to India with a view to going to Mysore, but I wanted to meet John Scott first, because a bodywork friend, Ken Ironman, had said, you must go and find John, and blah, blah, blah. He, you know, but so I went. And his little workshop was full, but I practiced with him and Gwendolyn Hunt and my friend Juliet in the afternoons at 3 o'clock together. And he said to Juliet and I, "You two practice like locomotives." So we were quite speedy. And it always sticks in my mind, because at that point I was still, I hadn't had ongoing teaching, but I was really in that thing that you've got to move with the breath, because that was very clear to me that each movement had to be with an inhalation or an exhalation. And because my breath was not that long, I was fast. It always makes me laugh. And now these days, it's kind of, I guess, post-menopause, I'm much slower. I'm not particularly, it takes a certain atmosphere around me or a certain heat for me to sweat these days. It's kind of less. I don't think it's the same for you, but I sweat.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I'm definitely always last finished. So your story there is making me wonder if it's maybe John's early influence has at some point. Yeah, just no, but there's definitely something there about the framework of the Ashtanga method, isn't there? Like, that it's a container that sometimes is applied too rigidly, but I think it's something that attracts many of us to it. So there's the piece about the movement and the breath, and there's also something about the framework in that as well.
Yeah, to know where you're going, and
yeah.
in a way for not to have to think about it. So once you know the practice, and it kind of floats you through. It's there, and it's something that you're just moving. And so I suppose in the wheel of Ashtanga yoga, the 8 limbs, you're kind of moving from that pratyahara experience into a slightly more meditative kind of 1-point focus, ekagra experience of moment to moment, to moment, which is a continuum. And I find that a really beautiful thing to be in. And, that experience of only that moment, and your breath in that moment, and your bandha in that moment, and what's holding something together. Yeah.
And I love the way as well there you described it as cyclical as well, and each is influencing the other. So it's not like linear, it's not a ladder. Each is coming back. I wanted to kind of circle back around. I mentioned at the beginning about being Ashtanga practitioners as women, and also being Ashtanga practitioners with all the speculation about how appropriate it is for the aging body, and particularly how appropriate it is and how it may have to change as women practitioners as we age as well. Because I've certainly got my experience, and I wonder what your thoughts are around that whole topic.
Yeah, and I think it's that being in present time. It's I hear people say to me, I used to be able to. And of course, I used to be able to, but we're only here now. And the only kind of gravitas we have is in present moment. So we have to just put all of that away and just be in present time. And that includes all sorts of scenarios with the menopause. But then if we go beforehand, for me, practicing pregnant, I was pregnant in Mysore for the first 4.5 months of my first pregnancy. So I practiced then. And how that changes, what you can do safely as well throughout pregnancy. And then, postpartum, when you've suddenly given birth and you're back with your body, how do you kind of come back into connection with yourself like that? And for the first time for me, it was difficult because I really had expectations. And I think that's the difficult piece, is the kind of pressures and expectations that we put on ourselves to perform. And actually, yoga is not a performance. Yoga is an internal experience and connection to ourselves, and we should be kind with it. So, you know, the first of the yamas, ahimsa, so we need to be kind, non-hurting to ourselves, and that includes with the thought processes. But I'm guilty of all of it. I'm guilty of all of the yogic sins at different times.
Yeah.
You know, greed, aparigraha, wanting more than is currently with me. And all of those things take you away from present time. So yeah, menopause has been tricky, frozen hips and all sorts of funny things, the lack of estrogen. So I think it's a really important piece for women to allow, you know, we go through these really intense processes physiologically, biologically, and we need to really have ahimsa running in the background all the time, and be happy in the practice, because it's supposed to bring us into connection and with ourselves. So there should be joy in the fact that we've got something that we can use to bring us there, and that's yoga. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually something, I mean, John said to me a really, really long time ago, and it was much more general, and it was about the practice should be nourishing you, not depleting you. And in that simplicity, like bang on for every, you know, it's bang on for every occasion, isn't it? And everything that might come up. And I think I'm kind of wondering, especially for women, if there's something around giving ourselves permission to have the practice change, or to change the way we practice, to allow us to be able to practice longer. You know, my kind of thinking is I want to still be working with this practice in 5 and 10, 15, 20 years. Amazing though it would be to do all the things that I used to be able to do in 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years. That is not going to happen. So what is it that I need to do?
So it's to be with
yeah.
to be with the ease, isn't it? And to
Yeah.
the thing is with the body, if you push the body, it's going to push you back. And if you come with a curiosity to your tissues, they kind of let you in. So we have to be careful about kind of how deeply we do things, and be satisfied that on one particular day it's this, and on another day it's that. But who cares about this or that? The fact is you were there with yourself, being connected. So yeah, I think it's around the expectation, and we have to acknowledge, I want when I'm 90, I want to be able to get up off the floor like I could as a baby, you know, pushing up. You know, you watch the process of the kind of evolution of life and children's, you know, as they're building muscles and they're learning to push up off the floor. All of those things kind of run all the way through to the very end of life. But you know, for me, I want to be able to have mobility when I'm old, because I think health is in that kind of breathing and motility of tissue. And yeah, to treat my tissues with kindness so that they're still working for me. Yeah, it's very important. Yeah.
So I'm conscious of time now, and maybe to wrap up, if we swing back around to how excited and delighted I am that you're coming to Glasgow.
So nice. I'm really, really excited too.
Yeah, and maybe what would you say to people who are coming to join us that weekend? What could you say about your approach to teaching and why you choose to teach that way?
So I'm quite a detailist. I really believe God is in the detail. So we can be doing something without a little tiny piece of information that would change it completely. For me, you cannot find space in the body if you're not finding the ground. So space in the body comes from your relationship to gravity and the using of your push, if you like. And the more kind of minutiae there is around your connection with your feet will follow up the kinetic chain into the hip, into the back, into the neck, into the cranium. So it's kind of having that sense of your wholeness instead of, so you might have a focus that's a minutiae focus, but you want to watch it unravel through the body until you feel it everywhere. So that's my kind of, the way that I teach is very much about that connection to earth and how you're going to use it to find space in your body, and also to understand the mechanics of the spine and how certain parts of the spine don't move in certain ways. So we don't ask them to. We actually give the right movement to the right part of the body. And I'm very keen on kind of informing in that way. And also just bring yourselves as you are, with all your conditions, with all your foibles and your idiosyncrasies, because that's what makes you you. And that's why we delight in people, because they're so different. And, yeah.
I'll email you my list later, Lucy. My list of injuries and foibles.
And have some humor too, like being able to humor yourself a little bit is good. Don't be too serious about it, because there's no need. No.
Lucy, thank you so much for taking some time out your day to have this chat, cup of tea, and I very much look forward to sharing a cuppa in person when you're here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judy, for inviting me firstly, and I really look forward to the workshop in Glasgow. So glad it's full. That's great.
Yes, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Cheers.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed our chat. If you've got any questions, you can email me or find us on social media. I'll see you here next time.